Good evening, and welcome to Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul's 2021 Annual Assembly. We set aside this time each year to connect with our member congregations, and we also welcome those of you from congregations who are not yet members of Interfaith Action. We're so glad that you've joined us virtually. We look forward to seeing you in person next year. Interfaith Action acknowledges that we are located on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Dakota people, who have lived here for hundreds of years. Indigenous people from other tribal nations also reside in the Minnesota Makachi and have made innumerable contributions to our region. Both the state of Minnesota and the United States government carried out genocide, ethnic cleansing, and forced removal against the Dakota as a way to acquire the land that we are on today. Despite centuries of colonial theft and violence, this is still and will always be Indigenous land. We honor the ancestral stewards of this land and celebrate their past, present, and future. My name is Bill Brady. I'm president of the Interfaith Action Board of Directors. In the next half hour, we'll hear from two dynamic leaders in our faith community and get a preview of the year ahead from our executive director, Randy Roth. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the amazing accomplishments of this organization over the past year. Look at what you, the people watching tonight, have made possible.
Ordinary people with extraordinary vision. That is the definition of you, our members, the people who power Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul. This last year required all of us to do extraordinary things. We are grateful beyond measure for your support that helped us step up, do more, and walk beside our neighbors to build stability and economic mobility, even in the midst of a pandemic. We doubled our capacity to serve families experiencing homelessness, moving Project Home guests to safe locations as the pandemic struck. In March, we opened a new family shelter at the Provincial House, made possible by a partnership with Ramsey County and the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. An on-site rapid exit social work team helped dozens of Project Home families find safe, affordable, and permanent housing. Our amazing Department of Indian Work staff responded to a 300% increase in demand from our food shelf during the early months of the pandemic and designed an engaging virtual experience for our American Indian Youth Enrichment Program. DIW was chosen by the Minnesota Department of Health to serve as the COVID community connector for the Twin Cities American Indian community. Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan hosted a press conference to thank DIW for its tremendous work. Opportunity St. Paul hosted monthly learning community events with national experts on racial justice issues. Volunteers moved online to maintain tutoring and job coaching. And in early 2021, we trained dozens of volunteers to participate in restorative justice circles to support Ramsey County Attorney John Choi's goal of building a system to resolve certain charges without incarceration. Our Community Power Up Legal Clinic continues to provide free counsel twice per month, and a new legal rights video series is helping people, clergy, and congregations understand eviction rights, Social Security disability benefits, rent assistance, expungement of criminal records, and more. Convenings of clergy with civic leaders included conversations with John Harrington, Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, First Lady Glenn Walz, and Mike Burbach, editor of the Pioneer Press. These vital discussions produce actionable ideas to strengthen our community. Thank you for being part of and supporting our work over this past year. We are indeed ordinary people with extraordinary vision.
What an amazing year. We can't thank you enough for your compassion, commitment, and contributions. I'd like to quickly welcome our 3 new Interfaith Action Board members. Dr. Laurel Gam. She practiced family medicine in New Ulm for 25 years before joining Doctors Without Borders in 2012, working in the Central African Republic. Now she is the owner of the Beautiful Laundrette, which, among other things, provides laundry service for Project Home. Nicole Martin Rogers, a White Earth Ojibwe descendant, is Senior Research Manager with Wilder Research. She volunteers on the Roseville Schools Indian Education Parent Committee and serves as board chair for both the St. Paul Children's Collaborative and the Tawahe Foundation. Suzanne Herder, a sister of St. Joseph of Carondelet, serves on the leadership team for that order's St. Paul province. Before that, she directed the St. Joseph Worker Program, which places young women in community service. She was instrumental in bringing Project Home to Provincial House. And I'd also like to recognize Kirk Kleckner, an Interfaith Action Board member who is moving to the Foundation Board next year. And finally, we offer deep thanks to 3 members who are rotating off our board: Reverend Javen Swanson, Father Eric Rutten, and Suzanne Kelly. And now, I'd like to turn things over to Randy Roth, who has led this organization through fierce times with courage and creativity. Randy?
Thank you so much, Bill, and welcome to all of you who are with us tonight. Interfaith Action believes that opportunity grows and poverty recedes when people of faith invest themselves in effective action. Our board and staff have a profound sense of urgency, and we know that you, our member congregations, feel the urgency too. Our board directed us to consolidate all of our capital, our social, moral, intellectual, reputational, and financial capital, to be of use to our community, which is in a state of emergency rooted in poverty and systemic discrimination. In this moment, when our community is in so much pain, we understand that we are called to 2 sets of responses. One set involves reform, policing reform, criminal justice reform, and more. But the other set of responses is about poverty. Systemic discrimination has pushed whole communities into generational poverty, and COVID made it worse. We need to bring all of our resources to bear on turning that around. Equipping houses of worship to do that work is the work of Interfaith Action. You learned a lot about our current work in the video. Let's take a brief look at what's next in our stability and economic mobility work. In Project Home, we're adding resources to help families with well-being and economic mobility. We're adding a second social worker to bolster the impact of our rapid exit social work team, which works with our families to help them stabilize, to find a positive housing destination, and to make connections to workforce and other supports to boost economic mobility. And we're adding a peer health navigator to our team to help families access health and wellness services like prenatal care, well baby care, mental health resources, and more. We are so grateful to be at the Provincial House, and we envision additionally reopening houses of worship as rotating Project Home sites. That combined capacity should allow us to just about eliminate the wait list for family shelter in Ramsey County. And how about our Department of Indian Work, or DIW? DIW is excited to be building for our East Metro American Indian community an economic mobility hub. This hub will support community members in navigating their chosen pathways to stability and economic mobility. Families will be invited into supportive conversation about their goals and about the supports and services that can help them meet those goals. Rather than give people a stack of pamphlets explaining how they can go all around town to find resources, our hub will make live, warm connections between people and what they choose. One family might need food stability, shelter, affordable housing, medical care, child care, legal assistance, career pathways, and more. Our hub will help to connect all the dots in one place. Our Opportunity St. Paul program is growing. Now, with our new Congregational Engagement Coordinator, Phil Romine, we can build more connections with your houses of worship and many more to add lots more volunteers for important work in tutoring, ESL and GED, job coaching, homework help, restorative justice circle work, and more. Soon, we hope to have 100 congregations deeply engaged in this work. That should mean thousands of volunteers. And finally, our Community Power Up program. Our vision is that in the neighborhoods that face the greatest economic barriers, people will fully understand their rights and will have, know, and trust lawyers and others who can help them enforce those rights. America is a country based on laws, and the system only works if everyone enjoys the full benefit of those laws. We plan to build a broader, deeper library of legal rights videos, host more free legal clinic sessions in more locations, and build a greater connection between legal resources and houses of worship. And now it's my honor to introduce our keynote speakers for tonight's program, two leaders in the St. Paul Black Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. We asked our speakers, how do we really all stand together in this work? They will address that question. Reverend Stacy L. Smith is pastor of St. James AME Church and presiding elder of the St. Paul Minneapolis District of the Chicago Annual Conference and Canadian Annual Conference of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Reverend Dr. Melvin G. Miller is pastor of Progressive Baptist Church. We welcome them with open arms, and we plan to embrace their thinking about what we should do together to build a better St. Paul for all people.
We all know that 2020 was a year of turmoil, stress, and unbelievable death and loss. Communities around the world found themselves faced with having to make decisions that they never, ever would have made, and Minnesota was no different. Now we are on the other side of 2020 and into 2021, and things are beginning to look up as far as coming out of the coronavirus pandemic. However, underneath the viral pandemic still lays a racial pandemic that is now having to be faced head on. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to even speak to such things as racial unrest and white supremacy, but we aren't in a perfect world, and things, sadly, do exist. I would love to see the day when we no longer need to address equity and inclusion, but we would all realize that we all do better when we all do better as a community, city, state, and nation. As we learn to do better towards one another, we must also focus on what is needed now. We need a healed and unified community. After the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent protest and unrest here in Minnesota suggests that we will never be the same. However, in the same light, there is a unique opportunity for change. And for that to be true, we as the faith community need to step into a courageous place of leadership and lead the way by example. When one community suffers, we all suffer. That is why I would like to take this time to challenge you to get involved. Currently, there is a work in action called 21 Days of Peace. The Black denominational community leaders have mobilized to combat the intolerable wave of violence that has claimed the lives of children, college graduates, and other innocent victims in recent weeks. This action is being taken to restore a sense of community and stability where all citizens can find opportunity and prosperity in a safe and nurturing environment. You can help by volunteering with your organization or church or synagogue to work alongside the Black denominational community churches and the local police to combat crime and deter the behaviors that are now becoming all too familiar. You can volunteer with a ministry of presence in the communities or by prayer walking or by joining a virtual prayer team. Your church, organization, or synagogue teams can volunteer by making a simple call. If you would like to volunteer in St. Paul, that number is 651-419-1502, or if you would like to volunteer in Minneapolis, the number is 612-254-1228. Through your volunteering efforts, you will assist the communities of St. Paul and Minneapolis in restoring stability, opportunity, and prosperity in a moral pursuit of a just community that fulfills the promises made to all citizens. I passionately believe that the direction that Minnesota takes while the world is watching will be the direction that our nation and the world will take in the days to come. Therefore, as the world watches Minnesota, this is an opportunity to show the world how to give love, compassion, and grace towards others who may not worship with us or look like us or even live by us, but yet they are us, Minnesotans. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for another day's journey and for opening doors that no one can shut. And secondly, I would like to thank Interfaith Action, Randy Roth and her very capable staff for this great and grand opportunity to share with you today. I would also like to acknowledge the strong leadership of the president of the St. Paul Black Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, Reverend Dr. James Thomas, and of course, my co-laborer in Christ and in this work, presiding elder Stacy Smith. I would like to begin today with a question. Why are we here today? I certainly cannot speak for everyone, but it is my hope and prayer that many, if not most, have joined this gathering to learn additional ways to engage head-on with the problems of racial inequity and structural racism. The legacy of white supremacy has been deeply embedded within the fabric of American society since the Revolutionary era, when the founding fathers of our nations decided that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That is, except for black and brown men and women. The landing of the first slave ships on the shores of this country in 1619 has shaped the experience of black people in this country for over 400 years. The enslavement of our people, the lynching and castration of our men, the destruction of Black Wall Street, the raping of our women, the instituting of black codes and Jim Crow laws, Plessy versus Ferguson, the systematic denial of our right to vote and our right to live where we want to through racial covenants are all, and on, are all a part of the legacy of our nation. It is fitting and timely then, in light of recent events, to think again about substantive ways that we can put a halt to and begin to overturn the psychological devastation of this legacy. You've heard from presiding elder Stacy Smith what SPEMA and other black ministerial organizations are doing. Now, the question is, how can we work together, all of us, to make this vision a reality? Time, unfortunately, will not allow us to initiate a meaningful discussion, but I can say with full assurance that we have the ministries, the minds, and the resources gathered today here in this meeting to make a difference. So my charge today is this: join us in our prayer walks as we show the community the love of God. Join us as we work with legislators and others to demand more affordable housing. Join us as we tackle educational disparities through a network of inner-city church tutoring labs. Join us as we tackle the problem of food insecurity through our network of food shelves. Join us as we build a youth complex on the east side of St. Paul. Join us as we attempt to develop in our young people an interest in robotics, science, and engineering. Join us as we tackle the health disparities that are tied to a lack of resources, poverty, and a legacy of suspicion. Join us as we work with our parents to give them the skills to be better parents. Join us as we fight to create job opportunities for community members through a network of job fairs and soft skill training. In short, we need your help. The problems are too great, the effects of racism and inequity too numerous for us to think for a moment that we can go at it alone. I'm reminded of a story, a biblical story. Much like us, Moses and the people of Israel found themselves in a jam. The socio-political climate was not advantageous. After 400 years of slavery, there had health disparities, educational disparities, food insecurity, and a yawning wealth gap. The people were in a jam, I tell you. Pharaoh was at the rear, coming up to destroy them. The mountains were on both sides, and they couldn't go either way. And the raging waters of the Red Sea were in front of them, so that they could not cross. Looking at these seemingly insurmountable odds, Moses cried out, "Lord, what am I going to do?" And the Lord responded with a question. He said, "Moses, what's that in your hand?" And he said, "It's a stick, Lord." And God said, "Move forward, Moses, and use what you've got in your hand." And he stretched forth his stick and parted the waters, and they walked across together on dry land. And that's all I'm trying to say today, beloved. All of us can do something. You may be able to do a lot, or you may only be able to do a little. But do something that God may be glorified and the people of this state, nation, and world edified. The urgency of now calls for the faith community to rise up and to reject a philosophy of gradualism. The urgency of now requires us to do all that we can to level the playing field, to provide access and equal opportunity, and to be intentional in our efforts to overturn the dark legacy of racial inequality in our country. Rise up, join us, and use what's in your hands. God bless.
Thank you so much, Presiding Elder Smith and Pastor Miller. We have lots of work to do. Interfaith Action will follow up on Presiding Elder Smith's suggestion by building a team to participate in 21 Days of Peace. If you'd like to join our team, write to us at info@interfaithaction.org. And Interfaith Action will work closely with Reverend Miller to join in prayer walks, to tackle educational disparities through our American Indian Youth Enrichment Program, to work with all of you to build out inner city tutoring through your volunteer work, and to develop the tools we need to produce better job opportunities and more. We're grateful to you for taking the time to share your perspectives, and we're dedicated to this work. Interfaith Action's vision is that opportunity grows and poverty recedes when people of faith invest themselves in effective action. Our interfaith community has what it takes. Our new congregational engagement coordinator, Phil Romine, will help us harness the power of the faith community. If you haven't heard from Phil yet, you will soon. We're grateful to you for being member congregations of Interfaith Action. Membership only costs $100, but it's a vital signal of the importance of belonging to an interfaith effort to make our community better for all. If your congregation is not yet a member, please visit our website at interfaithaction.org/membership to sign up. I'll close with a quote written by my college chaplain, the Reverend William Sloane Coffin. May God give you the grace never to sell yourself short. Grace to risk something big for something good. And grace to remember the world is now too dangerous for anything but the truth, and too small for anything but love. We can do this. Thank you for being here with us tonight.